Hi, my name is Hans Lessoe, and I'm the founder of Actus Risk Consulting. Actus is a merge of the Danish words for active uncertainty, and I firmly believe that uncertainties, risks, and opportunities, if you may, are facts of life. So you may as well learn how to leverage them, utilize them, benefit from them, rather than being afraid of them and starting to mitigate and minimize everything. Before I started Actus, I was working for the Lego Group for 35 years, the last 10 of which I was the head of strategic risk management that I was allowed to build and develop to a world-class standard. I'm very proud of the accomplishments that we had there, but decided nevertheless to continue on my own. When you look at risk management standards, the ISO 31000 and the COSO, they both agree that risk management must affect decision making, otherwise it's a waste. And this is why I've chosen for this Risk Awareness Week to focus on how to optimize decision value using the risk management tools and processes and methodologies, because they are there, they are available, and they might as well be leveraged. There's nothing new or difficult about it. It's just about having it done at the right point in time. In this recording or this session, I will be going through a couple of things. First, I'd like to scope the different levels of risk management, the different approaches of risk management as I see them. Then, when talking about decision-focused risk management, I would like to introduce a TIPA approach, where you target, identify, prioritize, and act. It's a rather simple approach. There's nothing difficult about it. Still, few people actually do it systematically. After that, I'll be talking about how to balance your efforts. There's a limit as to how many resources you should spend on deciding on something that you are deciding on over and over and over again, but there's also a danger of taking very large life and death situation for your company decisions without having made the proper homework. And then Simon and that talks about a lot about the culture. It's not about a risk culture, but it's a culture of intelligent risk taking. There is no such thing as no risks. There is no such thing as not taking risks. Whether you decide to go one way or the other way or not go at all, you always take risks. You always pursue opportunities. And developing that culture into a positive winning culture is worth a lot to an organization. And that's why we will end up there. Alex Sidorenko talks about Risk Management 1 and Risk Management 2. I would like to be more descriptive in my terminology, so I talk about risk execution risk and decision risk management. The processes are not that extremely different, but the scoping is. Execution risk management focuses on managing risks. Risks that already have been taken by decisions made or plans set in motion or actions set in motion, strategies made. As such, it is often reactive in nature. That does not mean you cannot prepare anything or do anything, look forward or anything else, but it's still, the decision has been made, so now let's make the best of it. On the other hand, it inherently supports the decision already being made. We have decided to do this thing, which may be dangerous. Let's make it work anyway. Let's make it successful anyway. And that is the approach of execution risk management. As it happens in most companies, currency hedging is execution risk management. Vendor risk management, credit risk management, all are elements of risk management based on risks already taken. Decision risk management focuses on supporting the decision making by ensuring that the risk profile is known for the decision before the decision is made. This means that it's presumably more proactive in nature. We haven't done anything yet. So we're still looking at what are the risks and what are the opportunities and what's the outcome range and how happy are we with that before we make the decision. On the other hand, it inherently challenges decisions about to be made. When executives want to say, I want to do this, and has a lot of energy in it and a lot of political strength in that, he may not want to listen to it, but you cannot afford to do that. The risks are too high, or it's going to be too dangerous or too difficult to do anywhere near the way we should have done things. So the background or the approach, the impact on the organization differs between these two in my case, but they can easily work together. Every organization will have levels of execution risk management, and every organization should have decision risk management closely embedded in the way that they are doing business. Now, looking at decisions, they come in two steps. There is the what to do. Do we go this or do we do that? And the how do we do it? Whatever we do, there's an approach. And what we should do is to focus on how to do it, and risk management, the how to do whatever we had decided to do. Because there is a safe approach to every task. It may be cumbersome, it may be expensive, it may take a long time, it may not necessarily be profitable or beneficial to us, but it can be done. However, we need to be aware that running a business, developing something, around leading an organization is about winning. It's not about not losing. So if we always take the approach, the safe approach, we will be too slow. Mario Andretti, the icing icon, put it this way: if everything is under control, you're moving too slow. We need to take that approach and focus on how to do it for the different alternatives, and then we can find the optimal risk planned approach to every option. Look at the outcome range, look at the results, and see, okay, which decision are we going to make, A, B, or C? Because that will be, by the end of the day, a choice between a few. And when you do this prioritization, you base it on your risk appetite. How much are you prepared to take? How much risk can you afford to take? What are you prepared to do? Or what are you allowed to do? In a lot of instances, there will be guidelines and rules for how much you're allowed to do as a manager. You will have some level of some leverage and some decision power, and others have to be relegated up to higher levels or even the board of directors. But still, based on your priorities, how are you going to do it? So this way you optimize value by taking as much risk as you can with a profitable an outcome as possible. When doing decision risk management, I suggest a TIPA process. The TIPA process consists of a targeting session where you get precise about what you want to achieve. What is success for you in this decision? Then the identification. What may affect your meeting objective? What can make you miss your objective? What can make you exceed your objective? Find a way to prioritize. Which of these elements do you need to act on? How will you act on it? And then what would they look like, so that you have a viable plan that you can go with, and then you go execute the plan. I will dig deeper into this in the slides coming. T, targeting, is all about putting the horse before the cart. I have seen so many decisions, so many projects, even strategies being based on I will, or we should, or we must do this or that, where the statement has been made without any due consideration as to what the outcome may be, what the risks are, what the opportunities are, what opportunities were missed, what alternatives were there. In a lot of instances, it's about an executive need to do something, or to ride a hobby horse. I really, really like us moving into new countries, so let's move into new countries, whatever happens. This is dangerous, and this is ineffective, because you very often will meet that you will find you don't know when you succeeded. So the first question you could ask the executive when he comes up with a desire of doing something, what is success? By which metric would you know that you're successful? Is it at sales level? Is it a staff satisfaction level? Is it profit? Is it whatever? How do you measure success? And what does it take for you to think this was a decision that was well taken? This was a successful decision. Because after the implementation, that may be months ahead before you finalized implementing this decision. Could also be weeks or days, but you can often, if you don't have the target for it, it's very difficult to say that you're successful. And if you cannot say when you're successful, you cannot say when you failed. And there is no talking about risk. So the whole card house falls apart if you don't have the targeting. You need the targeting. And then you need to draft some idea, and you don't carve everything out in stone at this point in time. How are you going to do it? What's the key approach, the top level, high level plan for meeting this? And then what are the risks and the opportunities that can be there? And the important thing related to the targeting here is that risks impact must be measured in the terms of the target metric. If your target metric is profitability, your risk metric should not be loss of customers or delays in time or added what this or that. It should be profitability. What's the profitability impact? If your target metric is a number of new customers, then this should be the base of how you measure your risk and opportunities in order to make sure that you have a seamless integration of your risk survey and your outcome and your reporting up against the target. I have to remember, executives don't care much about risks, but they do care about not meeting their targets. So if we can show them how they meet or do not meet their targets consistently with the way that they have defined the targets, then we're in good shape. The I is identification. And this needs to be holistic to be valid. I mean, we're looking at the plan. What may hamper us from meeting our objectives? What may help us meet or even exceed our objectives? This is great. We have to remember that leveraging a 10 million opportunity is as valuable and as good as avoiding a 10 million risk. It has the same bottom line or result effect, no matter what the metric is. And we have to be holistic. Being holistic, there are so many issues, so many projects I've seen failed because the project team and the project management were focused on the initiative itself and what they were doing and the decision, and not considering the whole thing around them. And you have this great project where the operation was a success, the patient died. We shouldn't have those, so we need to be more broad in our scope. And I will dig a bit deeper into that in the slides to come. At the core, we have the direct risks and leverages. We're looking at the initiative where we have the project management as itself. I mean, implementing a decision is often some kind of a project. There's a scope. Can the scope change? Will the scope change? There's some time frame that you've been set for it. You have some resources, be money, time, people, whatever. What are the risks that we have here? What are the opportunities that may leverage? And there may, in this one, be a lot more risks than there could be opportunities. Another part of the project, which is often forgotten by some, is change management. When we implement a decision, something is changing. It could be the liaison with a vendor or customer, it could be a complete business area, it could be processes, all the way down to how we book new invoices. This change management needs to be embedded in the project plan, and every project manager will tell you, yes, of course, and still it is forgotten morning, noon, and night. Who will need to do something differently? How can we involve these people, and how can we ensure that we get their support rather than their obstruction? There are severe risks in obstruction of the people who are actually going to do the job afterwards. There's a lot of help, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of insight to be gained by talking to the people who have to change the way they are doing their daily jobs because of this decision. So have those involved and have those being aware and make them help them define what can help and what can hamper your meeting of your objectives. Now, nothing is an island, except islands, of course. Whatever you do, there will be something that comes before us. There will be some process, some area, some things that when we are changing, they will have to accommodate to that change somehow. What are the internal processes that comes before us? Who are the vendors, or what are we buying? Does that still match with the new decisions? Does that still match what we're doing and the way that we have done things, or do they have to change? How can they help or hamper our meeting of objectives? And there could be a lot of help gained from involving the upstream. Not everything 3 levels down necessarily, but looking at what comes before whatever we're changing and making sure that we have that embedded in the risk profile that we are developing. Because for certain, risks and opportunities do emerge from upstream. Same thing can be said about downstream. What comes after? What customers or users do we have of this decision, this change that we have brought about us? What are we delivering? Is that different from what we've always delivered? Is it faster? Is it better? Is it changed? How can they use it? How can they leverage it? And how can that help or hamper our meeting of objectives? We need to take that into consideration. There's a lot of value in doing it by just reaching out to the people that we have here. Supporting processes are internal to the organization. If you're working with something that's in the value chain of a project, the processes that you will rely on is things like IT, finance, legal, HR, tax, whatnot, and you will be relying on those, but they can be affected or affect the implementation of your initiative. It could be well worthwhile to take just a peek into these organizations or a consideration around them and say, what can help and hamper our meeting of objectives from those areas, just to be systematically holistic. And it's quite valuable to do so. The organization you're working for is not the only one in the world. So you have to look at business conditions. What are the conditions that you're working under? And these are external to your organization. Your decision will be, your action will be subject to business conditions coming from the outside. And you can look at a steep analysis where you look at societal, technological, environmental, economic, and political change. You can have a changing competitive landscape. You can have potential disruptors. You can be the potential disruptor. And there can be a whole lot of other issues and changes in the business conditions that affect your decision. It can even be some of these have been the driver of your decision. What are the risks? What are the opportunities? What may help and hamper your meeting of objectives? Prioritizing is a modeling exercise. It's all about leveraging Monte Carlo simulation. Modeling and Monte Carlo simulation is a must. It's not about having a risk register. It's not about red, amber, and green. They are useless. They will not tell you, they will not show anything. They will not support your decision. And heat maps, they are often more dangerous than even useless. Forget about them, get rid of them. What you need to do is measure and analyze. Stop guessing. People are horrible at it. And we always, they've taken 2 Nobel Prizes to document that people are bad at guessing. Qualitative estimates such as high or low or very significant or insignificant, they're totally useless. What is very significant? How many of these does it take to be a catastrophe? And what is a catastrophe? Does that mean we're dead? It doesn't make sense. It's absolutely, utterly useless. And what is even worse about guessing is that quantitative estimates are biased. Every person on earth is biased. We are more afraid of some things than of others. Some people are scared of heights, other people are not. Some people are scared of dark rooms, other people are not. A lot of people are worried about terrorist attacks. Yet it is highly unlikely that any one of them will ever be affected by a terrorist attack. Rather few people walk around are very worried about traffic accidents. Yet most of us will experience some level of a traffic accident during our lifetime. It doesn't make sense. We need the facts, and the facts are always there. Douglas Hubbard, in his book How to Measure Anything, has shown you can always find a metric, a relevant metric, and you can always find a way to measure it. And once you have that, you model each risk and opportunity into your decision model. What's the impact distribution? What's the low likelihood, small impact? What's the expected impact? What's the high impact? Very often you use this 3-point estimate on the impact of a risk or an opportunity. And you can model that with a mathematical distribution of any kind. But we also have to be aware that a lot of the risks and opportunities that we have in a project or that are ingrained in a decision may never materialize in the first place, which means the impact is zero. So we have to address what's the likelihood that it will happen at all, and have that. And once we have that, we add this to our decision model. We do not make a separate risk register kept in the desk of the risk manager. We embed it into the decision model, working with the people who own the decision model and calculate it. We have all the risks expressed in the values of the result metric, the success metric, don't we? So we build it in there and have it ingrained. That way we can model our exercise leveraging Monte Carlo simulation. In this prioritization, Monte Carlo simulation gives you two valuable results to work with. One is a curve like this, where you from a 0 likelihood to 100% likelihood on the y-axis have the outcome range. As you can see, the outcome range starts with less than minus 100, which means in this case example, you can lose more than 100. You can also gain more than 100, but it's unlikely. To the right, you can see that the likelihood of meeting or exceeding your target is 32.7%, which means there's a 67% chance that you will not meet your target. You can also see that the median outcome with a 50-50 point is minus 13.6. So there's a 50% chance you will lose more than 13.6. Are you happy with that? Is that okay with you? Is that enough certainty in order for you to go on with your decision? Then go on with your decision. If it isn't, you can leverage the tornado diagrams that comes out of the same software. This is one software. There are plenty of others you can use. And here, risk F is shown as the most important, the most impactful uncertainty you have on your project. Now, can we do anything to minimize and reduce risk F? Reduce the likelihood, reduce the impact distribution so that we can get a better outcome. Can we leverage opportunity 3? I call them lever here for space reasons. But can we leverage this one? It's a positive idea. Can we make sure it happens? Can we make sure we can benefit from it? Can we mitigate risks A and G? Can we leverage lever 4 and 5? Then we can get a better result. This is an iterative planning process. You start by simulating your decision model, whatever you've come up with, and then you look at, are you happy with that? Is that okay? Are we done? Are we ready to go? If yes, then go ahead. I mean, don't overdo it. There's no value in, not much value in overdoing. You can get some value sometimes, but normally there wouldn't be. My guess is the first time you've done this, you do this, you will not be happy with the result. And then you look at the tornado diagram and say, what are the key uncertainties? You address these, you discuss these and decide what are you going to do about them. And whatever you're going to do about them, you update your model. You update your decision model by introducing or adding on the activities that you're now going to do to mitigate that risk or to leverage that opportunity to make sure that they get a better result. You update what you're doing, the costs and everything, and you update the impact and likelihood of the key risks that you've changed. And then you do another simulation and ask if you're happy, and then you can turn around. The beauty of this is that this lower cycle is a planning cycle. It's so easy, and you can do it. I mean, for a lot of projects, it will take hours, not even days. It will take hours to do that amongst a team of relevant people and have a plan and say, okay, now this is how we optimally will execute this decision, if this is the decision that we are going to execute. By the end of the day, you'll be happy and go ahead. Now, when you have a decision that covers a range of opportunities, 2 or 3 or whatever, you can do this exercise for every one of them and figure out how to do it and pick the best ones. Once you have the best decision, the best plausible decision, decided what to do and how to do it, you start navigating real life. You have an optimized plan. Go ahead, get started. Monitor the developments and the changes that happens across as you move along. I mean, it's not a straight down. It's not a speed skiing where you just run one direction. You have to navigate. And as Helmut von der Wolke, the elder, a former German general, said, no plans survives first contact with the enemy. So once you hit real life, there will be changes, there will be actions, there will be risks that become bigger and some become smaller, and you have to adjust. So what you do is you update your plan and your model and decide on the next step. So you integrate this risk decision thinking with your project planning and your execution to get an optimal result, simply by iterating your way to a successful outcome every time. Now you have to balance your efforts. You don't have to go out with the full Monty for every decision that you make, but you also have to make sure that you are prudent enough in your bigger decisions. A lot of business decisions are frequent and known decisions. We know what we're doing, we've done it before, and there's no this and that. That does not preclude that we shouldn't think it through. Most decisions are worth 20 minutes, half an hour of your time before you actually make it. Discuss it with key people. Look at what are the key ups and downs. Be confident and go ahead. Without doing a heck of a lot of analysis and without doing a heck of a lot of other things, you know what you're doing and experience, and you have the experience. A lot of the decisions made in a company will be tactical in its nature. That will be lead to projects that has anything from a 2 to 20 months implementation phase. Here you have identified stakeholders, talk with them. You have facts, analyze and leverage them. Be risk aware, be flexible and adaptable in the approach that you have taken. Don't be scared. Go ahead, but think it through a little more thoroughly and a little more systematically than what you're doing with the day-to-day decisions. And sometimes, if you're a top manager or executive, you will have strategic decisions that where you're basically betting the farm. These can be a result, an outcome of a strategy process where you have decided where to go and how to do it, and you have a very systematic analytics process about what strategies to make and so forth. But can also, as we saw in the external business environment, be decisions that are forced upon you. Some competitor or some other entity that affects you does something that changes your life almost overnight, and you have to decide how to act on it. For these very important multi-million whatever decisions, do ensure to have a valid decision base. Have your best people calculator. Go through it. Be thorough and systematic in your approach. You're betting the farm. Be sure that the bet is a good one. And be cautious in whatever decision you make, and be adaptable in whatever decisions on how to make it. That way you can make sure that you can optimize your business decision. Optimizing by being flexible and adaptable on the frequent and known decisions, and then being more and more thorough and work through in your strategic decisions. Paul Simon and a lot of others talks about the culture or the risk culture and the culture of a company. Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture is important. And what we can leverage with this is that we can develop a culture of intelligent risk taking. As I said earlier, there is no such thing as not taking risks. Culture basically defines how we do things here. This is the way that we work. We always do this, we never do that, or whatever, in a number of ways. And people new to the organization will learn what that means. Now, if your company and organization is systematic on optimizing decision value by embedding the TIPA model and the risk thinking and the modeling and the Monte Carlo simulation into major decisions, into important business decisions, that will influence the entire organizations and become how we do things here. And you have built a culture where everybody does this. Nobody will even consider jumping the fence, because we know this is the way that we do things here. We've gotten accustomed to it, and we've seen the value of it over and over again. Doing that gives you a winning culture based on intelligent risk taking. You cannot avoid the risk taking. You might as well leverage it. Be intelligent about it. Know how to do it. And how do you implement that? 3 words: consistency, consistency, consistency. If you always push for it. If the steering committee of every project asks for the risk profile, if the executives for every decision material he requires ask for the risk profile and how it's embedded and what has been done, then it will be done. If it's not asked for, it will not be done. It will simply flatly be forgotten, and there is no value of it. And this is about it. It's not more complicated than that. It's simply taking standard procedures and processes from risk management and embedding them into the decision process. Remembering that any decision has 2 elements. What are we doing and how are we doing it? The risk profile of any decision is based on how we do it, because there is a safe approach to every task. And the one we choose to do may be highly risky, but that's a deliberate choice. In that risk planning, risk management of decisions, leverage a TIPA approach. Be sure that you have a target, a measurable target to go for. Identify holistically. Prioritize what you want to do something about and embed it in your model, and then go acting with confidence. But be adaptable in your implementation. The world has a nasty habit of changing all of the time, so you might as well do it. And be consistent. The consistency will build you a culture of intelligent risk-taking that will be destined to be a huge competitive advantage for the company. Or much worse, to your competitors if you don't and they do. So this is what I believe optimizes decision value. Leveraging the standard processes and tools and mechanics of risk management into the decision process, and not waiting until you've made the decision, then starting to rescue whatever you've done. It could be a huge competitive advantage to you. So thank you. And if you believe I can help you, feel free to reach out. Have a good session.